name's Emily, and I'm going to share with you about the character of Christ. The character of Christ. This is a character that we as Christians should constantly be striving towards. 1 John 2:6 says that whoever claims to live in Christ must live as Jesus did. But what does that mean? What is the character of Christ? What does that look like? Well, in order to answer those questions, we have to look at who Christ was and is, and what he did that shows his character. First, we have to start by making sure we have the correct perspective of who Jesus is. When we see Jesus in the Bible, we are not only seeing God's Son, but we are seeing God in human form. Jesus is our window through which we see a true portrayal of who God is and what he does. Once we see Jesus as God in human form, we can begin to look at the character of Jesus and see it also as the character of God. In John 5:19, Jesus says, "I do only what I see my Father doing," just after being accused of breaking the Sabbath, the most holy day of rest. All that Jesus did reflects who God is. So what did Jesus do? He walked with those around him wherever they were at. Mark 2:15 through 17 speaks of Jesus sitting with tax collectors and sinners at Levi's house. Sinners were not always the ones doing the wrong things, but they were those that were considered lower than the Pharisees, those considered to be less than others, or considered to not be true Jews. They were the Gentiles, the prostitutes, the homeless, the lower class, and of course the sinners. Jesus loved all that he came in contact with, regardless of what they had done or who they were. Jesus never sinned, he was blameless, and he was the perfect representation of God on earth because he is and was God. The character of Christ was loving, supportive, and compassionate above and before anything else. Jesus came to earth to love what we call the other. As we've already heard, Matthew 22:36 through 40 speaks of loving the Lord your God with all your heart, your mind, your soul, and your strength, and how this is the greatest commandment, and the next is to love your neighbor as yourself. It says that these, or all the law and prophets, hang on these two commandments. These are the most important characteristics of Christ. These are the characteristics we as Christians should be striving to achieve when we strive to be like Christ. Loving God with all of who we are, and loving our neighbor as we love ourselves. As I mentioned, Jesus came to love the other. He loves those who today many people choose to perceive as sinners, as unrighteous, and as condemned people. These people are the homeless, the socially unacceptable, the outcasts, those who have different beliefs and religions, who have different orientations, who are seen as less capable, and even those who just simply disagree. We have been a witness to those who choose to act as Jesus would have and sit with the outcast, with the others, those who talk with them and those who love them unconditionally. In order to truly have the character of Christ, we have to be willing to look at and remove the plank in our own eye before even beginning to take the speck out of someone else's. Matthew 7:3. In 1 Timothy, it says, "I am the chief of sinners among all of these." I need to recognize my own sins and character flaws when compared to Christ before I can even begin to point out the flaws of those that are closest to me. This is a job that will never be finished because, as Romans 3:23 says, we all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. The character of Christ is one of unconditional love and forgiveness, mercy and compassion, grace, discipline and faith, and unending joy. These are the characteristics we as Christians should be striving for, and above all else, unconditional love is the